Owls TV, I'm delighted to welcome Carmen Yuen, a partner at Vertex Ventures. Vertex Ventures invests into high-growth startups seeking their first round of institutional venture capital funding across Asia. Delighted to welcome you to Great Owls TV. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
How do you evaluate whether a business is worth investing into?
So usually we will look at it from the perspective of pain. We don't want icing on the cakes. Those are nice to have. When rubber hits the road, they will be the first to go. However, we want to look at things where it matters so much to organizations, to individuals. So they are actually your pain point. And pain point to an extent where you're prepared to go all out by getting your entire organization behind it to solve it, or all out in terms of committing money to figure it out. So we like solutions in that space.
You invest in high growth startups, so obviously they have proven already that they have traction. What are the key criteria for you to decide whether to invest or not?
So I think it's also the validation from their users. So if they have got this wonderful patent technology, but no matter how they sell, people are looking at it and say, nah, another day. Then perhaps even it is high growth, is the best mousetrap. Actually, there's no market fit. So for us, that validation from clients is important, not just small clients, but rather sizable clients. We will speak with other potential users just to validate from a separate source.
Does a founder play a big role in your investments, and what makes a successful founder?
Founders are key. So for us, when we invest in a business, it's really because of the conviction we see in the entrepreneur. Of course, when it comes to early days of the business, where they have got maybe 3-4 people validating an idea, I think the key thing is for him to deliver on clients. Then as the team grows, it's really about how he manages his team. At the end of the day, people work because they are convinced or convicted by the vision of the founders, of the management. So to that extent, he will have to spend a lot of time making sure that the team is still gelling with him. The next level of management has to share his ideas. They will have differences. How do they iron out those differences? And usually we do ask them, tell me about scenarios when you fight. I want to know how you have resolved it.
What would be your advice for founders who are just starting up, particularly in the fundraising area?
There's a lot of investors around looking for good deals, and a lot of us are different from each other. So Vertex may have a certain criteria, but other people may have a different set of criteria. So for the founders, it's really not to be, if you are convinced enough about what you're doing, you should be passionate enough. And passion is also another word for suffer, right? So you should be passionate enough to go knocking on doors and sharing your ideas, revising it along the way. Because sometimes by the way people ask questions or people deliver comments, is actually food for thought. So they should incorporate some of this food for thought and maybe revise their propositions, and maybe their business plans can be tweaked. But if they knock enough doors, if they're persevering enough, for sure there will be a door that will be opened. If they're really providing some proper solutions to address any businesses, right, or any problem statement. Yeah, there's no startups that's too small. It's really finding the correct backer, and the backer doesn't have to be financier. It could be a partnership.
What are the key mistakes do you think startups make?
I think sometimes it's about coming up with a solution where there's very little use case, or they over-imagine that the problem statement is of a certain kind, and therefore the market is of a certain kind. So that bridge from where they are to where they want to achieve, they could underestimate, number one, the amount of money, the amount of time, and maybe that market has shifted. It doesn't really need your solution anymore. So that nimbleness is a challenge sometimes. And of course, finding the right team is another issue. Some of the founders in their passionate moments maybe a little bit impatient with their team. And so when the team is unable to gel with you, you can't quite have the support that you need as you run forward. So hence, that's why it goes back to the people management skills that is important to articulate back the vision that they have.
Vertex Ventures has funds in other countries, in Silicon Valley, in China, in Israel. Do you see what are the unique trends in those in the startup ecosystem in those countries versus Southeast Asia?
Mm-hmm. So I will say that Israel is very strong in the cybersecurity space, right? Given that they have always been oppressed, right? So they're just very good at it. China used to be very strong, at least in my opinion, very strong in the consumer internet space. Anything and everything imaginable you can find in China. However, over the last few years, I've also noticed that they are developing their strength, their power in being the AI hub, in developing things in the automation space. So they're really very good there as well. And it's no surprises, given the kind of high-tech schools they have and the amount of talent that they have in China. And also many of them are return PhDs, return researchers from the West back into China. So it's no surprises at all. When I look at Southeast Asia is a mixed bag, given that we have got different countries all at different stages of growth. And while we have got return students from the West back to like Indonesia, they are still the minority. So they are the ones that will spearhead certain consumer internet companies, but you still have a lot that are lagging behind. So this is also similar in the other pockets in Southeast Asia. Now the interesting thing I noticed is that maybe 20 years ago, the Chinese are fantastic copycats of whatever technology solutions that come out from the US. You have got the Baidus, the Tencents, and so on, right? They were reflections of whatever that was in the US. However, now I'm beginning to see that Southeast Asia companies, they do copy, and they're beginning to copy flavors from China. So that's an interesting thing to notice.
The majority of the startups fail. Do you think the entrepreneurship should still be encouraged? And if yes, would you encourage your children to be entrepreneurs?
Of course. So I'm a strong supporter of entrepreneurs. If not, I wouldn't be in the role that we are in. I wouldn't be joining this industry. For sure. So if we think about it, all technologies came, or all the enjoyment that we have today is because somebody dared to try something new. Think about handphone. Somebody must have dared to do something different, which people say is crazy. How could you even be walking and talking? We are used to having a phone in the house. But somebody dared to do it. If we were to think about the airplane, the Wright brothers were entrepreneurs in that sense, right? They were inventors, and they have to find people to back their ideas to make this a commercial feat. So they are entrepreneurs in that sense. Even down to your diggers, your heavy equipment companies, the caterpillars and all, surely somebody came up with it. So entrepreneurship should be encouraged.
What's the one book that has impacted you the most, and why?
It just encourages and spurs me on when I look for startups, is that there's no idea that's too small, right? Is this book called The $100 Startup, $100 Startup. And in it gives all kinds of ideas of what are all the possibilities with $100. So it's very motivating. Might be a bit difficult to execute in Singapore, but really at the end of the day, it's just in our frame, even in our mindset, how impossible we suspect it to be. But actually, all things are all possible.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you on Great Owls TV. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to know when the next episode is up.